Hello and welcome to Tea Time with Torloth. Today I decided on a broader topic, transhumanism. This may seem out of the blue, but with Cyberpunk 2077 coming up fast, I've been looking forward to this game since the first reveal in 2013, and I have accidentally been watching a few animes that deal with this topic now. And Japan doesn't have all the transhuman media, but I'm going to start by defining transhumanism. Transhumanism is the hope or belief that humans can transcend their physical or mental limitations through science and technology. I just want to recommend some ways to get your humanity transcending fix before Cyberpunk graces the internal storage devices of our preferred platforms and PC. On Earth, they tell stories of the legendary Galaxy Express 39 that will take you to a planet where you can get an artificial body for free and achieve immortality. But this is a grim future, full of hate, discrimination, resentment, and misery, themes that persist throughout the galaxy. This is the story of Tetsuro, a boy with nothing, traveling across the universe in search of his artificial body. He's accompanied by the beautiful and mysterious Metru, her task to see Tetsuro to his destination at any cost. Tetsuro isn't the most likable of characters. He grew up poor and has very little in the way of education, but Metru teaches him the ways of the galaxy and how to survive in the cold embrace of space. But Metru is a far more interesting character, having history with several of the galaxy's most notorious people, and in communication with someone who has an interest in our space cowboy in training. Galaxy Express 39 has a plot and story that is far deeper than its shonen manga roots would imply. It was also made in the late 70s and animated by a French studio, and with strong ties to Captain Harlock, is easily one of the most interesting anime on this list, also the oldest. Ghost in the Shell. Not my favorite of the bunch, but the most famous. Has plenty of good ideas and maybe gets a little bit tangled up in them. The 1995 animated film is a good place to start and get a feel for the series, but I would also argue that the 2017 live action film is just as good, since it is essentially a remake of the original 1995 film of the same name. Both of them have issues though. But don't let politics stop you from watching a film. The 95 film is a little too hot for YouTube. There's a lot of naked major and explicit cyborg gore porn. The live action movie is rated PG, so it's safer if you're worried about exposed cyborg nipples. The major is a full cyborg, a brain in a titanium cage, with the outer shell of a woman. She has zero sense of modesty or what it's even like to be human. She's cold and all about the job first. With the great supporting cast and interesting world, it makes it clear why this franchise is beloved and why it has so many people take notice of the Japanese anime scene all those years ago. Appleseed was also popular in the mid-80s. I've never watched it or read it, but I've heard it's good, and it's from the same writer, Masanori Ota. Where I'm not an authority on Ghost in the Shell or what's canon, what's best, and what isn't, since I haven't watched everything that Ghost in the Shell has to offer. That's why my recommendations are the original film and the 2017 one. I wasn't really hungry for more after watching those, and honestly, as cool as Ghost in the Shell is, and how as interesting as Ghost in the Shell is, I didn't really have a desire to watch more. Pandora and the Crimson Shell, Ghostern. Also from writer Masanori Ota, better known for Ghost in the Shell of course, comes a far more interesting idea. Seeing this grim transhuman future painted with the brush and view of a child on a remote island full of technological wonders. After losing her human body to a terrible illness and her parents to a tragic accident, Nene is moving in with her aunt, who lives on the bustling Cerebel island, full of all sorts of modern wonders. On the boat, she meets Urla and her full cyborg companion, Varian. Nene takes a real liking to the cat-eared maid. But on the island, something very strange is going on, and Nene and Clarion tend to get caught up in the middle of it. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is one thing I don't like about this show. There's some very fan servicey scenes that seem out of place with the overall tone of the show. I don't hate fan service, but there's enough forms of it in other ways we didn't really need the Pandora device activations to be so played up. Because of this, I feel I must put a tentative recommendation on this one, even if it's my favorite of the anime ones. Blade Runner. Based on the novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and starring Harrison Ford as Deckard, a former police officer turned Blade Runner. Blade Runner's jobs are to hunt down rogue replicants, or ones that live past their life expectancy. Replicants being implanted with human memories, so they have no idea they aren't real people. The Blade Runners retire these replicants. It paints this dark noir future. It's definitely not my favorite film, but I respect it and think it's still good enough for this not so comprehensive list. RoboCop, the 1987 R-rated film. Shh, others don't exist. This film aged incredibly well, even if some of the visual effects didn't. Here's the grim 80s future. Gangs, humans playing God, and the crime capital of America. The story follows the life and death of Alex Murphy and his rebirth as RoboCop. Most of the plot revolves around the OCP and their plans to rebuild the crime-ridden old Detroit with their new and improved Delta City. News broadcasts and adverts in the movie give us a fantastic and horrifying world building in this dystopian view of corporate America. I really enjoy this film and always have. Its sequels and reboots have never been able to compare to the original. The second movie is just a mess of non-connected plots trying to appeal to a younger audience. The third is even worse. They give RoboCop a jetpack, I swear only to sell toys. And the reboot, oh god, don't get me started, it's just awful. I'm not sure why you bother with all these reboots when there's piles upon piles of scripts that Hollywood's sitting on. Make one of them instead. I'm sorry about the vague wording, it's totally plausible. You've never seen this movie, so trust me, it's a good one. Honorable mentions go to Almost Human, a TV show starring Carl Urban. It was a few years too early for the streaming craze, which probably would have saved it since they kept shifting the time slot and it killed the show. Aeon Flux, a personal favorite of my eldest brother, and I'm talking about the MTV Bizarro animated series from the 90s. Getting footage for that was just like, why did he like this again? Don't watch the film with Mila Jovovich. Battle Angel Attila? Attila? I don't know. The manga in particular, and this one was recommended from a private chat when I asked about Transhuman Media, along with Dano Coil and Serial Experiment Lane. I've never watched either of these, but they came recommended from the same chat, so that's it for stuff you can watch. Maybe you'd rather play games instead. Worry not, I have a few recommendations for you there too. Blade Runner. Yep, again. Made in 1997 by Westwood. This is an adventure game of the old genre where you're pointing and clicking and trying to find clues. It's really interesting. I've never played much of it, but if you want to know more, there's an excellent video from CV11 or Civi11 on YouTube. I'll link that in the description below. Deus Ex, Human Revolution, and its sequel, Mankind Divided. I might get hate for these picks, but I never played the original games, so I don't know anything about those. I only have played Human Revolution and Mankind Divided, and for what they are, they're good. You follow the story of Adam Jensen on a globetrotting adventure and his way to try and get back at the Illuminati for doing Illuminati things. The plot isn't super smart, and even if it's trying to be something deeper than it's not, the writing doesn't hold up. But If you take these games for what they are, they're fine. Don't expect what CD Projekt Red's gonna wow us with in September, but you still could have a good time playing Deus Ex, at least Mankind Divided. I think it's the better of the two games. But maybe you've dreamed of being a bartender in a Cyberpunk universe. Well, don't fret. VA11, Hall A, or if you prefer, Valhalla, has you covered. This is a very interesting game, and it's not my style, but I wanted to recommend it here anyway because it is one of the first games that came up when I asked people. Snatcher. You know about Hideo Kojima, and this is one of his more interesting games. Basically Blade Runner in everything except name. The rail shooter part of the game is the worst part, but it's a pretty compelling story here. No PC or modern version, emulators are your best bet with this one. Sorry. Omnicron, the Nomad Soul. Last but not least. This game was on Dreamcast and had the late and great David Bowie in it. I adored this game a ton, but it's awkward for me to play today. My last attempt to play through ended up with abrupt and critical save loss. Your mileage may vary, and depending if you're willing to put up with, this game can be a fantastic time. Granted, this was before the GOG version of the game. Rest in peace, Dreamcast. Well, wasn't that a fun adventure? There was a lot of dark, a lot of gritty, a lot of hopelessness in these series and things I'm showing off. So if you're not into that, I'll come back with something a little more cheery next week. That's why Pandora and the Crimson Shell kind of pops out to me, because it's a colorful sort of, it's a dystopian. There's clearly a discrepancy in power. More interesting because it's from the view of someone who's so young that they can't comprehend why things are the way they are. Whereas all the other ones, it's, you're living in this dark future. But that's going to do it for me today. Feel free to send me your own suggestions. I'll probably burn through a lot of this stuff very quickly. I'm going through the space train right now. The Galaxy Express 39. That one also stands out to me because it's under the gaze, or I don't know what you call it, the mask. It thinks it's a children's show. It's trying to be a children's show, but you know where to find me. And I hope to see you back next week for another somber and positive episode of Tea Time. I don't know what to say. Matinee.